This is the CHRILLCAST. I'm Chris.
I'm Will.
I'm Zang.
I'm Luke.
And I'm Installation00.
And this is kind of an extra special video, which is why we have 5 people covering it today. And 1 omnipotent speaker and 4 face cams.
Voice of the universe.
So before we get started talking about the Forerunner Saga and Halo Infinite, because I just finished reading it, that's why I finally decided to discuss it, because I actually finished reading it recently in the last 2 months. Why don't you guys all introduce your channels?
Okay, so I do reaction videos to all sorts of stuff, Halo, Star Wars, Arrowverse stuff, but I'm also shifting towards doing a lot of Halo videos since those get a lot of positive feedback, so I'm really excited to start shifting to that, doing lore stuff, community stuff, so I'm really excited to see how that goes, but it's basically what I do.
I make Halo videos, like general Halo videos, and when there's nothing to talk about, I choose to make SCP videos as well. So a little bit of spice into the mix.
And some of your you did some of those like cross fighting videos where you like analyzed who would win in a battle, and those were kind of cool too. Sorry.
Yeah, I need to see more of those. The versus videos, they tend to do really well. I've only ever had one not do great. All the others like bang. So maybe I got to do more of those.
And I'm Installation00. I do Halo lore videos. I'm probably best known for my most detailed series where I go into insane levels of detail on all things Halo.
And if anybody's been watching this show for a while, you know that every single person on the show today has been on it before. So I'll have some links to some older episodes in the pinned comment. So if you guys want to see interviews with both Installation00, HiddenXperia, and Zenghilios. So today, I'm taking it upon myself to jump right in there. We're doing a Wildcard Wednesday. Will, you want to say that better than I did?
Yeah, so Wildcard Wednesday.
And we're going to be talking about the Forerunner Saga and Halo Infinite. Kind of the first thing we want to talk about, though, is like, and if you haven't read the Forerunner Saga, it's great. There's probably going to be a lot of spoilers discussed in this video, so if you haven't read it but you plan to, probably skip this one. If you
I feel like it's one of those series you have to read twice to really get it too. Like, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Especially that
or
last
once
one.
really slowly. So I just wanted to kind of jump in with what are our thoughts on the Forerunner Saga and Halo Infinite. Like, I know you guys have done plenty of videos on what kinds of things we could really see potentially in there. But what are some quick things you guys want to like just mention? Anything about Forerunner Saga and Halo Infinite, and what are some of the tie-ins you guys see?
I mean,
there's a big one.
I think the obvious one is ZETA Halo. I mean, we've been begging to go there in the game for years, and it's pretty dope having that confirmed for Infinite. Goes without saying that if you've read the trilogy, you know how significant ZETA Halo was and really still is of a location for Halo. The amount of things that are connected to it, the amount of ties that it has to, like, at least personally for me, like the coolest parts of Halo's like universe and lore is really, really cool. I just hope 343 tap into that and aren't afraid to go near it because it's really like tricky expanded universe stuff.
Yeah.
But they created that though. I feel like they should know it and be able to integrate it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a case of them not knowing it. It's more a case of them being like concerned that they'd put it in the game too much, and then new fans who jumped on board with Infinite or people that don't read the books have like no clue what's going on. But there are definitely ways to still incorporate it whilst appeasing the people who don't read the books. There's definitely ways to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I hope there appears to be an explore element to Halo Infinite. It'd be kind of cool to go to some, you know, if you go exploring, you can come across some like really old places. Say for example, where the Primordial was held within that vessel.
Find
and
some of that dust.
Aged through time. Yeah, it'd be cool to go to like a really dark, dank-looking area, and you go in and you find the capsule that the Primordial was in, and just inside it is a pile of dust, and it just kind of harkens back to that. That there's ways they can factor it into the gameplay without sort of throwing people who aren't as into the peripheral stuff like through a loop.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the obvious one with that is Palace of Pain. Kind of rude not to.
Oh yeah.
I've just got 2 words for the Forerunner Saga. Forerunner Saga, English is hard. Halo Infinite crossover. And those 2 words are Mendicant and Bias. I had no idea who Mendicant Bias was until I watched these guys' videos on him down there, and holy... Okay, I'm excited. I'm just gonna leave that there. I'm so excited to see Mendicant bias in Infinite, and I know he's not confirmed, but I'm just super hopeful for it.
Yes, me too.
And I really
Yeah.
think it'd be a massive missed opportunity for him not to be in there in any way, shape, or form. So
It would
can't wait.
be, yeah. It'd be insane for them to go to Zeta Halo in a game that is an open world game that has an emphasis on exploration and not even like mention him in an offhand comment. They've got to like.
Mhm.
I honestly, I will give this game a 0 out of 10 in my official review if there's no mention of him, and I'm not even kidding. I genuinely will do like that. I can't imagine them not at least mentioning him. They've surely got to.
Well, they
Yeah.
just finally pay off the Halo 5 trailer where, Chief is wandering through the desert in his cloak. It can be like an anti-Cortana cloak, and then he finds Mendicant bias and Force Sphinx. Perfect.
See, I'm as excited by the possibility of meeting Offensive Bias, because we don't know
Yes.
what he's been doing
Yeah.
all this time.
Yeah, like we just don't hear what happens to him. He wins the battle at the Ark, and it's like that's it. It's like like Faber, like not Faber. Oh, it's been a long time since I've read it. I said that like just kind of pats him on the head, and he's like, right, that's it, done now.
Yeah.
Never hear about him again.
Go.
Yeah. We just never hear about him again. Like you'd think that he would still be technically at the Ark, theoretically, considering that's where the battle went down. You'd think he would be at the Ark, but at the same time, you never know.
I would love to see Chakas return again. Bring back our favorite floating orb.
Yeah, our favorite light bulb.
I want to see
Yeah,
him come
I-
back.
Isn't he in like some kind of suit now, though?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
He's in an armor gun now, yeah.
Yeah, he's basically a Promethean, or he's in a Promethean soldier, like, robot body, basically. I don't know, I really don't like how much 343 have been slowly eroding Halo 3's ending. Like, first it was like, oh, we go back to the Ark and it's basically not damaged, and then the Flood are okay. And then Guilty Sparks is still alive, and like, what's next? Johnson survived? Like,
I was literally about to say, it's like, oh, so you're completely ruling out Johnson being alive then.
yeah, exactly. Like, don't get me wrong, John. I think it goes without saying that I love Jonathan, but like,
Yeah.
if they were to bring him back, I know everyone like kind of jokingly says like, oh, what if he just emerged out of the smoke randomly and said it's classified? Like, yeah,
Yes,
but
it would be
when you
great.
consider-
Oh my gosh.
But when you consider like what that means, like if that happened, the entire ending of Halo 3 would mean nothing. Like none of the
Yeah.
plot threads that are tied up at the end of that game, and technically the trilogy as well, would mean anything anymore. And I feel like they've got to kind of draw a line somewhere. They've already ended up eroding half of it. Let's just cut a tie.
I definitely appreciate that, but Halo 4 existing kind of ruined or kind of eroded the ending of the Halo 3 because you finished a fight in that game, but then not really. And then also, Master Chief is Forerunner, but not really. Now there's this whole other race, and so it kind of, I don't know.
Well,
They've
that-
already
that-
kind of eroded it, so they might as well keep going down that path.
But again, in the Forerunner saga, there is sort of, it's not outwardly said, but it's hinted towards the fact that humans and Forerunner may have a common ancestry. So
I like your theory on that. I did appreciate that video.
It makes sense why they have the mantle of responsibility. So, and why the Covenant and any other species didn't get it. So, if they did share a common ancestor, I mean.
I got a
do.
question, Will. It goes along the lines of Luke's thinking here. What would make you more angry? Johnson coming back untouched and coming out of the smoke like, "Oh guys, I'm back," with the Johnson attitude and all that, or him going the Captain Keyes route and the Flood absorbed him and he comes back that way?
I would be.
Oh.
That's tough because I want both of those things to happen. I want the Flood to come back and I want Johnson to come back. So I don't know how I'd feel about either one of those scenarios until it happened. I mean, I would have a big goofy smile on my face if he just came out of the smoke because it's a callback to Halo 1. I realize it completely destroys that moment when he dies, but I don't know. That's tough.
Sorry.
Isn't
Bear with me
Isn't
just a
Johnson
sec, guys.
immune to
Oh,
getting
Not-
infected by the Flood?
Not technically immune. I think the best way to describe it right is, have you seen World War Z? You know the story of World War Z? So how in that, like, the virus, the people infected with the virus don't try and infect people who have already got illnesses and diseases. At least that's the way that I interpret it with Johnson and the Flood. It's not that he's immune, it's just that it is a lot harder for the Flood to infect him than it is like any other host. So they kind of just don't bother. At least that's the way that it's basically very vaguely, like, talked about.
Gotcha. Okay. Glad I didn't go around saying that Johnson was immune to the flood before this then.
So, answer the question though, like, would you be more angry about a Captain Keyes where the flood like slowly deteriorated and pulled him in, or would you be more angry if he just kind of showed up out of the blue like, I'm back, guys?
I think I'd be more like upset that he was part of the flood at that point, just because I was like, they bring back a character that I love only to have him not be himself, like, you know, like another character like Cortana. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'd be more upset with the flood scenario.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like, if they do bring him back, which they won't, but if they were going to bring him back, at least have him be himself. Don't bring him back and already like ruin that bit, but not have him actually be himself. Like, at least if you're gonna ruin that plot thread, at least make it worth it. You know, don't make him some like Captain Keyes Proto-Grave Mine blob type thing.
I think what they did in Shadows of Reach when they brought back Truth's key ship, or at least the ship he used in end of Halo 2, beginning of Halo 3, you would think that it would have been destroyed or at the very least infected by the flood. I guess minor Shadows of Reach spoilers. I don't know if you want to edit something in there before we talk about this, but they kind of made it work throughout the novel and all that. They kind of made it tie into a really meaningful way, and I was, swear to God, I just finished Shadows of Reach Tuesday, I think, last Tuesday, so I was actually catching up on everyone else's videos on it, and I didn't realize that short story they had where they actually go inside Truth's key ship, and there's like a whole separate Covenant thing in there. I was expecting the Flood to be in there, not the Covenant. So when I was hearing about like Spikers flying and the Covenant, I was like, okay, but wouldn't it make more sense if the Flood was in there? I mean, they took over High Charity and they all went to the Ark, so I would have figured that the Flood was in there. So
where was the key ship? I don't remember where that landed.
It doesn't actually show it in Halo 3. It says in Sacrifices that it lands in this like ancient Forerunner city on the Ark. I forgot what it was called. The Banish have got a name for it. They called it something, but it's basically an ancient Forerunner city that it landed in. Which the description of that was pretty cool. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. So they at least did something meaningful with that, and didn't just retcon anything.
Yeah. That made sense to me though, because we never saw it land. We never saw like any like ships engage it or anything. Like the entirety of the Allied force that went to the Ark were focused on like get into the cartographer and then get into the Citadel and then stop in Truth. None of them really went to destroy the Anodyne Spirit. So it made sense to me that was still like quite intact.
I've got a quiet hope that we're going to return to the Ark at some point during the next 10 years of Halo.
Yeah.
I hope so. I hope so. Honestly, I really hope so.
It'd just be cool to see like, even like have a level that's like removed from an area that we're familiar with from Halo 3 that you can see from this new area. It'd just be like, it would be such an awesome moment to look across and think, wow, we were there like 20 years ago.
Yeah, honestly, that was something I was really hoping they'd do in Halo Wars 2. You know, I think it was the first or second mission, they make a point of mentioning that this debris is here because of what the Master Chief and the UNSC did in 2552. I was thinking, like, hang on, are they going to lead us into, like, an area where we actually fought in Halo 3, but from, like, an RTS perspective? And they didn't. And that was a massive missed opportunity. And, yeah, in an FPS, that would be dope. I'd be so down for that.
So I think we can move on to question number 2 here. That's the second thing I really had postulated was, if we were to see Mendicant Bias in Halo Infinite, how do you think we're going to see him? And then the second half of that is, how would you like to see him come into Halo Infinite?
I mean, if I had to make a guesstimate, I'd say that obviously he won't be on Zeta Halo. His primary core was buried on the Ark. But that doesn't mean he can't be in it. Like, my absolute pipe dream is that they bring back Halo 3 style terminals. Like, literally, copy and paste Halo 3 terminals. No videos, no audio logs, none of that. Literally just copy and paste the style of Halo 3's terminals over to Halo Infinite and have Mendicant Bias in those. Like, seriously, like, I do like the video ones. I like the audio logs. They're cool and everything, but none of them will ever be as cool and interesting and unique as Halo 3's terminals. And I've made I must have made 10 videos talking about why I want those things in particular to come back.
It's way more of a mystery that way, and you're actually you feel like you're peering in on this conversation, like you're actually like a spy or something. Whereas the videos just show you what's happening.
And the creepiest stuff as well was like in those terminals, it was supposed to be in the final one, the legendary one on Halo. It was meant to be Mendicant Bias talking in the background of it, supposedly. Like you can like the weird distorted sound in the like kind of audio backing track. If you reverse it, it's meant to be Mendicant Bias talking. Like that stuff's so cool, and you don't get that if you just have a video as a terminal. You lose a lot of that subtlety and like intrigue that you get with the textile terminals. That to me is the best way to have him in the game. I think it would be a bit too fan servicey and a bit of a cop out if it was just like, oh look guys, his primary core is actually on Zeta Halo. How coincidental! Like
I don't know,
I'd want him to do like that.
But what about Cortana? Like, couldn't Cortana go and rescue his primary core?
I mean, yeah, I suppose technically she could. That's a good point. She could do.
I feel like I pissed all over like sort of Luke's love of the terminals now, because I got a load of voice actors in to recreate all of the Halo 3 terminals. I kind of feel like I'm just
I was literally gonna say the only way that I would probably improve the Halo 3 style terminals would be to have an option for voicing them over. I was literally just about to say that, so quite the opposite in fact.
You're okay, thank God for that.
Well, do you think this
like,
is something?
Luke, don't look at my channel, don't look.
Yeah.
Dude,
So,
as long as you've not made a video saying that Sprint belongs in Halo.
No.
All right.
No.
Chris, idea. We gotta make that video. But so, do you think that you might be able to tie in Mendicant Bias or offensive bias into this story? Not necessarily like this main story, maybe like the eventual DLC that we're gonna get, and that's how they're going to address taking down Cortana. Because you read Shadows of Reach, you realize that she's like more of a shadowy figure, and she's probably not going to really be in the story, but like the threat of her is there.
Yeah.
So I mean, eventually they'll have to address the threat. And you think that maybe like, well, we're gonna have a better AI at the end because we're going to dig up one of the Forerunner AIs.
I mean, yeah, it'd definitely be cool. I definitely wouldn't say no to having Mendicant Bias in my head.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, go on.
Yeah, to be fair, even I know Cortana's a slightly different creature now, but during Halo 2, when she was on High Charity with Chief, the single shard of Mendicant Bias that was inside the Anodyne Spirit was, in her own words, a formidable AI.
Yeah.
So if she was struggling even against a single shard of Mendicant Bias, then to have like his primary core as like, I don't even know if you can put like a Forerunner AI onto an AI chip and allow Chief to carry it around in his head without having like half of a Forerunner computer hanging off the back of Chief's back. But
Yes.
If you could, surely that would put Cortana on sort of back on her heels and think, oh Christ, I might not be able to do this.
Yeah, especially if they just all of a sudden like he remotely takes control of the Guardians. I think that would be a really cool way of ending it, is where they dig it up and they just take control of the Guardians, and that's the end of the game for now.
Do you know what would be super cool though? Is if you're walking through Zeta Halo, and they somehow get you to the area where they time lapse the Primordial into dust. If all of a sudden the Chief has a memory as being Bornstellar, and you see the Primordial in the window, and all of a sudden he collapses into dust as like a memory.
That would be cool.
I think they could definitely do something like that if they had like, it's kind of like pseudo terminals in a way, where you could like, I don't know, you could like, considering there's so much history on this ring, you could play back like an event that happened during the Forerunner trilogy or something, or like maybe if there were video style terminals again like Halo 4s or Combat Evolved Anniversaries or Halo 2 Anniversaries that showed these actual events happening, that'd be cool.
I'm just picturing
a
like
holographic reconstruction.
Yeah, or that would be sick as well. That would be really cool.
I'm just picturing like the Bornstellar memories surfacing as you go through Zeta Halo. Like he just starts seeing more of Bornstellar.
Yeah, and actually pay off like the plot lines in Halo 4 so they actually make some sense.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. I was thinking, going back to what you guys saying of Mendicant Bias possibly being in Chief's head, and then you, Chris, having the idea of maybe Chief dreaming or a memory, a fragment of a memory of the Primordial. What if, because Mendicant Bias was affected by the Logic Plague, I don't know if he's still 100% still feeling the effects of that at the time of Halo Infinite. But if he did get put inside of his head and he was still fractured and broken from the Logic Plague, I think it'd be cool to have like intertwined memories of Chief and Mendicant Bias coming together, because that's a good way to make it make sense. Because like in Halo 5, when Chief's running on that bridge and the hunter breaks it, and then he has like some weird freaking drug trip of Cortana talking about Meridian. It didn't. I was like, what?
Like, it's so confusing.
So I just think that they were gonna do that. The likelihood of it happening, I don't know. Maybe not, but I think it's a good way to make it make sense, if that makes sense. So
I think we can presume that he doesn't have the logic plague anymore, because I mean, considering that final terminal in Halo 3 was Mendicant Bias saying like he wants to atone for his sins and help humanity. And I don't. If he had the logic plague still, I doubt he'd be wanting to do that unless he was playing the biggest game of double bluff. Which I mean, I'm not gonna write off. You never know. You never know.
my camera stopped.
At least it's a face that's
smiling.
that's
Yeah,
smiling.
it's a
That's a good
perpetual
phrase.
smile. It's all good.
Yeah.
I really like the idea of them paying off the Halo 4 story though, and bringing in Bornstellar as like the memories are coming to the Chief as we're playing through Infinite, and that could be a really great way to tie in the Forerunner saga. But I think the next thing we need to really talk about, since we were talking about the Primordial and Mendicant Bias, I think we should just kind of talk about the Primordial question I have here. So Installation00 had a really interesting video about the Primordial and his kind of theories on it. So I'll just read this out loud, and hopefully it makes sense because I wrote this a couple weeks ago. It has been highly disputed as to whether the Primordial was truly a precursor or was actually some kind of leftover precursor flood husk type deal. Not truly a precursor, but containing the minds of the precursors. But also Installation00's theory is that maybe the precursors and the flood are one and the same in like one continuous cycle. So what are your guys' thoughts on that?
I mean, it's basically highly suggested in both Silentium and Primordium that the Primordial lies a lot. It used half-truths a lot and like interwove them with actual truths to kind of push its agenda. So it's saying that it is the final precursor doesn't necessarily mean that it is. I don't think unless 243 ever released like a new bit of lore or something about the Primordial, I don't think we'll ever get a for sure yes or no as to whether it or not it was an actual precursor. Okay. My bet was that the way that I saw it was that it technically was the final precursor, but it was also one that was like but it was basically the personification of the transformation of the precursors into the flood. It was kind of like the personification of that transformation. It was half and half in a way. I mean, it's described in the book as I think the exact wording is the final precursor, the first Gravemind or something. That's kind of the way that I saw it.
I'm let 00 jump in with some of his thoughts, like kind of from his video.
Yeah. So the video I made is the idea that the flood, the precursors, and their belief of the living universe is actually all one and the same thing. So that in a very similar way to like Mass Effect with the Reapers and the fact that they would go through cycles of harvesting populations, the idea would be that the precursors seed life, and since the precursors' belief is that all things experienced by life, both good and evil, are just sweetness. Basically, it's just an additional experience for the universe to enjoy. Then the idea would be that the flood are kind of the next stage of that cycle. The flood come and consume all of the life in the galaxy, and that feeds back into the living universe and almost gives the living universe sustenance, so to speak. And then the precursors return and seed life once more.
I actually, I like that theory. I think I used to talk about that theory a while ago, actually, or something kind of similar to it. Definitely a lot less fleshed out. That like the precursors, in a way, still exist and still govern the galaxy, and they seed the galaxy in like this perpetual cycle. They seed the galaxy, have a bunch of species like advance through the technological tiers and everything, become civilized and advance as a species, and then they kind of unleash the flood on them, see how they fare. See if any of them survive, and then if none of them survive, they basically just restart it from scratch. So they make more species. They then send the flood on them again until they find one that can actually beat it. I always like that idea that it was like we were just one instance of one of the many cycles that the galaxy's been through and that the universe has been through, and that if we lose the flood, it's like, okay, well, the board gets wiped clean and they start again. They make new species.
You know, as far as like why would they do that? Is it because they actually don't know how to beat the flood either? And they're just trying to test species to figure out like a way of defeating it. I realize that's not backed up with any of the novels, but
The way I saw it is like Installation00 is saying, it's like it gives the galaxy sweetness. It essentially just gives the galaxy something to kind of entertain it in a way, because obviously precursor neurophysics basically posits that everything is living, and by that extension I always presume that because something is living it can feel emotions, so it can enjoy something. So in a way, like, the galaxy can enjoy the experience of having everything in it being consumed, as weird as that sounds. That's kind of the way that I saw it, and it was a way for them to like both kind of create the perfect species that could actually beat like the Flood, the ultimate threat, and also feed the galaxy, so to speak. We're getting kind of like SCP here by feeding the galaxy, but like, you know what I mean, that sort of thing.
So I'm not gonna lie, I kind of had the thought process that the Primordial being the last precursor, being a husk of what the precursors were, that it's described in the book as being like pieces of many species of like many different animal species, Forerunner pieces, or like just all kinds of different stuff was built into this creature, right? Tons of arms and ligaments and legs and stuff. It's like, for it to be a precursor and also be what it is, it just seems kind of degraded, like significantly degraded, if it were a precursor, because it is combined with the Flood.
Well,
so
the precursors didn't have just one form, did they?
No, that's true
I'm
too.
sure it's posited somewhere that they were formless. They could change their shape and their form and their physiology at will. So having an amalgamation of different, so to speak, precursor forms would kind of work with what was described.
That's a good point. I wasn't thinking about that way.
The more I'm not going to pretend to know a lot about the Primordial and try and act like I do. The more and more I sit here and hear you guys talk about, the more and more I get terrified of them. I always thought the Primordial was just the first precursor Flood, and then you're talking about how precursors had different forms, and I'm just sitting here like, huh. I thought I knew a lot about Halo. It's really it's like half of this. This is awesome. It's just keep going. I'm enjoying this. Just keep going.
I mean, the precursors are like the perfect Lovecraftian being. Like, they are literally anything they kind of want to be, as like weak or powerful as they want. Theoretically, they can't. I mean, the reason, or at least a lot of the rumors as to why they let the Forerunners wipe them out, was they were literally just just baffled by the fact that one of their creations thought they were strong enough to do that, so they let them do it to see what would happen. It's like they are that powerful, they'll allow a species to wipe them out just because they're interested to see how they do it. It's certainly odd.
Jesus Christ. Okay. I have very different hobbies, but okay.
If my kids ever watch this, don't try it on me. So the thing that I found most intriguing, though, is given that we have the Bornstellar relation to the Chief, and we have the ring the Primordial was destroyed on. We have allegedly destroyed. We'll see if anything comes up out of the 343's back pocket. But and then we have the place where Mendicant and Bias and the Palace of Pain, all this stuff in the Forerunner Saga, the Forerunner Saga trilogy, could physically be there in some kind of a locked, the imprint. I can't remember the exact name, and my brain is not working right now. Gaesh, that's right. Yeah, it could be in there, and he could see all of these things. So if they were to put all these memories in there, and the Primordial secrets and all that stuff could actually be unveiled somehow, how would you want that to unfold? How would you want 343 to give us the rest of the answer to Primordial? Or wouldn't you?
It is never confirmed if Chief has Bornstellar's Gaesh or not. It's, unless I'm missing something completely, it's never confirmed. There are a lot of parallels drawn.
No, it's highly
It's assumed. Okay.
Yeah,
I thought it was.
That's like one of those. It's like the Halo theory. Like, I've been hearing about this theory for God knows how long now. Like, Chief has Bornstellar's imprint. It's like the theory for Halo.
I guess it's just been like locked into my brain now that that's it. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the ramifications of that being true would definitely be cool. There'd be a lot of cool stuff that could happen. I mean, they could, if they wanted to retroactively kind of bend that Librarian cutscene in Halo 4. I suppose they could kind of bend it so that she was activating the Gaesh in him, kind of. It gets it gets quite finicky because the lore for like geishas and stuff and imprints is still very underdeveloped, really. So like whether or not they could be activated at will is kind of something that we don't know.
Get on it, Luke.
I mean, maybe. You never know. It's one of those things that we don't know for sure though, and we won't know for sure until 343 choose to do something about that. But yeah, I mean the ramifications of that, if true, would be cool. I feel like it would be a little bit cheap though to make it so like, oh look, it just so happens that Chief has the best soldier in humanity has the imprint of one of the most important things from the Forerunners. I think it would end up being a bit like, oh, and he was this all along kind of thing, if you know what I mean. Like, I don't like it when stories pull that without any evidence. Like, for example, but this is kind of off topic. I don't want to take it too off topic, but in the Call of Duty Zombies universe, they did that at the end of Black Ops 3, and it really rubbed me the wrong way. It was like all this stuff that you've seen throughout the entire story from World at War to BO3. Yep, it wasn't who you thought that made it. It was this character that we introduced 2 maps ago that made all of it. You'd never heard of him before, but he made all of it. And it's like, no, because that wasn't the case. That was never the case. And I wouldn't. I don't know. I'd feel kind of weird if they did it with Chief. Not that there haven't been hints towards it, because there have been the odd hint, but I don't know. It doesn't really sit right with me. I like Chief being his own thing and Bornstellar being his own thing, and the parallels between them being purely coincidental, but kind of narratively impactful in how coincidental they are. If that makes any sense whatsoever. Like I think of that shot from Origins and Halo Legends when Bornstellar activates the array. The way that he stands in front of the control panel is the exact same way that Chief stands in front of it in Halo 3, and I like the significant parallels and similarities being drawn there. I think it would weaken that if they made it so that was intentional, not just a coincidental similarity.
Yeah.
But that would also explain all the conversations that were had between him and you know, the Reclaimer and all that. I don't know. It just makes a lot of sense in my mind. I get what you're saying about it cheapening kind of the experience that you're talking about. But at the same time, would it really, though? I mean, you could add so much to the story in Zeta Halo if you had that gayish on Master Chief.
I think if they were to do that, it can't be in the main story because everyone would be lost again. So it would have to be something where you're exploring. Like I think pardon the pun, but the exploration opportunities are infinite, and you can just go and find these little things where it's like, oh yeah, Master Chief is Bornstellar, but you wouldn't only find that if you actually go and explore the world, and it doesn't take away from whatever you're doing in the main story.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You could like pop in and like all of a sudden you see the Primordial turn into dust, like those kinds of things, like hints at it.
Yeah. I mean, the primary motivation behind the whole Chief Bornstellar theory really stems back to those few lines that Guilty Spark says to Chief during 2 betrayals. Saying you already knew that. How couldn't you? Last time you asked me, that whole dialogue that they were having. And really, aside from that, the only other hints that have been suggested or made to it have been, so again, 343 Guilty Spark calling him Reclaimer, or you are Forerunner, but this ring is mine, and aside from that, it's the Gravemind, and he only calls him Child of my Enemy. So while there is some significant moments in some of that could be extrapolated, and you think, oh, okay, yeah, that's pointing to Chief perhaps carrying the Gayash of Bornstellar. It's still loose enough to mean that it could just literally be through coincidence. But that's not to discredit the idea that we should be able to experience some of these pinnacle moments like you're seeing on the screen there with the video. That's actually some artwork that was made by a guy called I think Rythaze. I think I pronounced that right. But that moment of having Bornstellar effectively interrogate the Precursor, I'm all for being in Halo Infinite, going to a really obscure place in the middle of nowhere. Take some trekking to get there, and you go through kind of almost like a flashback. I mean, it's a possibility, obviously, with the cutscene in Halo 5 that Chief's got a tenuous connection with the domain now. So in theory, there could be like almost kind of almost a telepathic kind of reliving of a moment in time that could take place. I'm all for something like that happening.
That's a good point, actually. I kind of forgot about that. In that, like, his mind in a way is kind of linked to the domain now, and his being is linked. So they could do that, I suppose, if the domain kind of replayed like these events to him. That could work for sure.
What scene does he have a connection to the domain?
In Halo 5, right at that scene where the hunter, it's on I forgot the level
team.
now.
When he sees Cortana?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So the hunter bursts through the door, bashes the bridge. He falls down, and then he goes into this weird kind of esoteric realm.
All right, so this is my point though. This has to be part of like the side missions, because like I was so confused during that scene. I had no idea that he was supposed to be like having a connection to the domain. So like I don't want
the scene
them.
you're talking about?
No, it's before
No.
the start of that clip.
Start of that clip?
Start of that video. It's when
Right
there you
there.
go. It's
Yeah, I
that
see
one
it.
when he
There you
falls
go.
down
Yeah.
the hunter.
So that scene there is effectively it's heavily implied that that's happening within the domain, so to speak, or an aspect of the domain, or the domain is creating this environment in Chief's head. Hence why you can see him fall to the knee, and then it cuts away unceremoniously. That's great. There's he falls to the knee, and then he suddenly comes to, and he's still just on the floor with blue team around him, asking him if he's okay, and he's had this weird kind of blackout moment. We could have something like that explored in Halo Infinite, and then at least that ties together that little thread of narrative that like the Librarian did something to him in Halo 4, which unlocked something, and I was pumped and ready for Chief to be like to come out of that and be like an unstoppable badass. I mean, he is anyway, but more so.
Even more.
And then nothing happened other than him being mildly immune to the composer. Then in Halo 5, you get that little scene where he has this kind of like brief discourse with the domain, and then in Halo Infinite, you could have him, the domain almost reaching out to him again and dropping him little bits of information about things that happened in the past, just as kind of side that would thread that narrative together quite nicely, I think.
Yes, I agree.
So other than what we've already discussed with the potential for seeing the Palaces of Pain, the Primordial, the Mendicant bias, potential tie-in with some terminals, all those good things we've already talked about, what do you guys think the chances are of Return of the Flood occurring? Maybe we see some Protograve mines, some captive ones. What do you guys think?
I think from a gameplay standpoint, throwing the Flood in there would be an absolute game changer in terms of 343's gameplay, because we haven't had the Flood so far in 343's games, excluding Halo Wars 2, of course. But I mean, just from a lore perspective as well, between the Palace of Pain, Installation00 being a research facility to recreate life and all that, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, the Flood is on Installation00. There's no doubt about that. It's just a debate as to whether they've already been released or if they're still there, if they've been moved. That's just, they're there. They were there, and unless we don't know something, they should still be there.
I think it would be cool, just real quick, that you could go through the whole game without ever seeing the Flood, but then if you explore, you could accidentally release it and infest the entire ring, and then completely change the outcome of the game. I don't know if they did do that. That's way too ambitious, but that would be amazing.
That is a really cool idea. I'd be very down for that.
I do find it kind of interestingly coincidental, so to speak, that they've said that Halo Infinite is supposed to be now the platform for the next 10 years of Halo, and there just so happens to be 10 proto-grave mines in stasis pods on Zeta Halo. So it's I don't want to necessarily put too much stock in this possibility, but if Halo Infinite's going to be open world, could there in theory be an aspect of it that's kind of world events almost? And then they could have almost a yearly, maybe not yearly, but they could release have a flood infestation sort of break out, semi-regularly that needs to be dealt with by the community.
That'd be cool.
Kind of like the creepers in Minecraft. Oh no, the flood's out.
It would be cool, like a world event, kind of like how they do like the big events in Destiny and stuff, where when they brought the Almighty down, something like that would be really cool. I really hope they tap into that kind of sort of style of content for a live service game, because especially with an open world game like Infinite, it would work really well, I think.
Can you imagine if halfway through the game you're fighting the Banished, and then all of a sudden the Flood take on the Banished, and now you're fighting the Banished as Flood?
Yeah, that would be dope.
Yeah.
I mean, it effectively could make it so areas of, maybe that's part of the reason that Zeta Halo is breaking apart. They're like different sections, so to speak, of Zeta Halo, and they become infected, so they become like burn areas that it's dangerous to go to. But if you want to go there for almost kind of a like a dungeon style, mission to get some extra XP or whatever, you could go across to one of these burn areas and try to fight back the infestation until
Going into a
done
burn.
enough work. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be
Yeah.
really.
I'm just picturing the library.
Oh no. No. Not again.
The funny thing is, like, as an adult, that level is not very hard. But man, when I first played that was torture.
I mean, on
I
Legendary,
think
they're
that-
all kind of hard, but not as bad as they could be, I guess.
I think that the whole idea of having a live service or having at least world events really depends on Halo Infinite's multiplayer, which we still know nothing about. It's just, is it going to have any PvE in it? Because doing a campaign thing, I know they said it's going to be 4-player online, and they'll have split screen too. But if they do a world service or a world event or something, I guess is the best way to put it. How would they do that? Would they do it in multiplayer? Would they do it in campaign? They would have to continually update voice lines and get Steve Downs the voice if he's still around then, or Chief's still around then.
Might not
It
necessarily.
has to be multiplayer.
Might not. Yeah, I was about to say it might not necessarily have to be a campaign aspect. It could be multiplayer. I mean, it seems pretty academic now that your Spartan 4 model, so to speak, or Spartan 4 character, is now outfitted with Gen 3 because that's the armor that they've been showing us and showcasing for us. So it could even be that there's sort of the quote unquote lore of it is that there's a sort of a division of Spartan 4s on Zeta Halo, and their responsibility is to contain almost like a kind of almost Spartan Ops, so to speak, Spartan Ops revisited.
I think that they are going to lean that way, and I'm very excited.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if after you finish the main campaign of the open world, you then enter the open world again as like a Spartan Ops type thing, playing as your like Gen 3 Spartan 4. I think that seems like the most obvious approach right now for them to go.
Yeah, especially after designing this big open world and open environment. I mean, I know nothing about game designing. I don't know if I just see creating this big, marvelous world that I really hope we all fall in love with. It'd be kind of a waste to just have it single player, and then you're just stuck going on a really small 3-lane map on multiplayer. When why not take that up? You already have that asset there. Just multiplayer. Have like at least a hub, or kind of like what a lot of games do now, like Destiny. You have like that social area, something like that. At least.
Just have a
Maybe that's what
firefight.
Echo Base is.
Have a firefight in the beginning. All right, your firefight is essentially pre-campaign, where the humans are losing to the Banished. Right. You could literally just have the firefight with the pre-Master Chief portion of the campaign as that place where you introduce flood forms, you introduce the Banished, whatever, because you don't have to really explain any of that necessarily. You know what I mean? It's just the humans
if you're
losing.
3 for 3. Now there's lore behind red versus blue, and I don't understand why.
Wait, what? Did I lose?
Yeah, there's a reason why they're fighting, and it's like I remember when they made such a big deal about that in Halo 4, and I'm just like, why? I don't care.
Wait, was that in the map description or something? Or I
No,
can't
they've
remember.
always had map descriptions, but like the reason they're fighting is because war games, so you can go.
Oh,
like,
dude,
simulation.
yeah.
And so that's-
God, I hate that explanation so much. It's just like, it was one of those things where it's like, you just didn't need to do that.
Oh,
Just leave it.
it's
Just
like
leave it.
no one asked for that. But the thing is, then okay, so it's all simulation, great. Then why am I not fighting any brutes or any of the other things introduced? Like, why am I not fighting the Flood? That should be in the war games. That would be something that we need to know.
Yeah.
I cringe to this day every time I hear Palmer go, "Welcome to War Zone, Spartan." I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why'd you have to say that?
I will say I do like Warzone a lot. I know it's super glitchy and terrible, and I saw this terrible pop in yesterday where like the Phantom just like suddenly gets bigger. It's like,
What?
that looks so bad.
Oh yeah. They
Instead
don't
of like
fly
flying in.
behind like buildings now. They just go. Whoop.
Yep, they just go. Boop.
Yeah.
It's like this is so stupid, but it still plays well. I like it.
All right. Any last thoughts on the Flood being on in Halo Infinite? Anything else you guys want to say?
I hope they do it, but I hope they do it in a way that doesn't piss everybody off.
They need to take some cues from Halo CE and the way that the Flood was revealed in that. If they're going to reveal the Flood in Halo Infinite on Zeta Halo, it needs to don't put it on any of the box art. Don't tell us about it ahead of time. Don't give us trailers. Don't do anything like that. Just let us come across it in a really creepy, ethereal way.
I do feel like games nowadays suffer so much from just being spoiled in trailers. Like, so many games just have like their big turning point kind of just like at least hinted at or spoiled in trailers, and it sucks. Like, I wish we could go back to games being like CE or like Halo 2, where it's like in Halo CE you had no idea about the Flood, in Halo 2 you had no idea about the Arbiter. I wish we could go back to that, because so many games now have like big plot points in the trailer to try and pull you in. Like, no, I want to experience that for myself. I don't want to watch a trailer with some dub stuff in the background or something to find out about it. You know, I want to play it.
Yeah, that's what makes games so memorable too. I played Halo 2 for the first time in 2015, right after MCC came out, like a year after it came out. I still didn't know you got to play as the Arbiter, and I was like, wait, what? And if that had been spoiled for me, it takes away from the experience. Or imagine if you watched Avengers Endgame and you were spoiled about Tony dying or something. It ruins it for you.
Tony dies?
Wait, yeah, no, wait, what?
Oh.
Yeah, you're so right. Like the Halo 2 thing with the Arbiter, I actually was kind of upset when I first got to that level back in 2004, whenever it came out. I was like, what the hell is this? I'm not playing as Master Chief. But I'm replaying that game with my wife right now, and when you first like ignite the energy sword, she was really excited to be like, oh, I get to play as the alien this time. Of course, she's super confused. Like, everyone's an alien that level. Who do I shoot? Yeah, it was good.
So what do you guys think the chances are we get some more Librarian-esque stuff in Halo Infinite? Continuation that we didn't have in Halo 5.
I hope so, because I still don't know what happened in Halo 4.
If you ask me, not very likely.
Yeah, probably not.
The Librarian is one of those characters that to me is kind of like the personification of Halo 4 and Halo 5, and what P43 seem to want to kind of move away from and course correct from. I don't see them bringing the Librarian back, really. I think that she'll probably be in the game in some capacity. There'll be like a terminal, or like there'll be some sort of Easter egg or something that'll talk about her. But I wouldn't expect it to be like in Halo 4 or in Spartan Ops or Escalation or anything like that, where she's like, you actually see her imprint and you interact with her imprint. I don't think we're going to get anything like that.
If I recall, the only imprint of the Librarian that now exists was briefly on Earth. And then I'm sure she had a conversation with 3/4, well, CHRILLCAST technically, as his sort of Armiger form, and then didn't she leave for the Ark for Installation 00?
I've not actually read Renegades.
Okay, well I'll shut up.
No, dude. I'm not bothered. I don't mind. I know that. Obviously, she died on Earth, base of Mount Kilimanjaro, so I would assume that she would have an imprint there. Yeah. That would make sense to me, especially given how significant Kilimanjaro is in Halo. That would be a good place for her to have an imprint. But she had one on Requiem, obviously. I might be misremembering, but did she have one in the Absolute Record? Or am I misremembering?
I think the one in the Absolute Record may... That one may have actually gone to... I'm trying to remember the book now. It might have... I don't know if it went... If that particular, like, so to speak, fragment of her went to Mount Kilimanjaro, or whether there was already a fragment of her there. I can't recall exactly, but...
I might be wrong. I mean, that's Escalation. It's been a long time since I read Escalation. But I guess
in my head, I'm just seeing, like, if somehow they bring the Bornstellar connection in, then the Librarian would make sense to also be there to explain it somehow.
As a terminal, yeah. I don't think her character will be there.
Nah, that could get very, very expository if they brought it back.
Another 15-minute cutscene.
Yeah. I mean, people already called the character an expository source in Halo 4 because of that cutscene. Like, if she came back and explained that, I feel like it'd be...
I almost hope that it happens now.
I'll be honest, it would be kind of joke to see the reaction to it. I'm not gonna lie.
And she like at the end of it just slowly turns to the camera and smirks.
Winks at the camera.
Yeah.
Breaking that fourth wall, huh?
Yeah.
I'll react to that for you guys.
Yeah.
Like
All right,
what?
so this is completely unrelated,
Okay.
but so there's like 3 Halo rings now, and I'm sure you guys have made videos on this, but there's the one at the end of Halo Wars 2, there's the one at Halo 5 Legendary Ending, and now there's Zeta Halo. Wait, are they going to tie up those storylines? Like, is it all the same? It's obviously not the same ring. There's at least 2, but are there 3 different rings now that are important, or are there just 2?
I'd say 2.
I'd agree.
I mean, I just want to say, I'm every time this comes up, I'm gonna blow my own horn. I called that ring at the end of Halo 5 being Zeta Halo in November 2015. I called it 5 years ago, and I'm proud of that, right? I'm proud of that. But no, I'm pretty sure that's Zeta Halo. I can't see them hinting at a Halo ring in a legendary ending, and then not having us go to that ring, but a different ring in the next game. It makes sense to me.
I'm kind of glad you asked that, Will.
Yeah, what are they gonna do with the Halo Wars 2 ring then? Or
Halo
is it
Wars
just
3.
Yeah, we can hope.
Yeah, well, she has no
God.
army with her though. It's just Anders, right?
Halo Wars 3 is gonna tie up the Cortana storyline and that other ring.
Yeah, whatever.
Can you imagine though, like Cortana's the bad guy in Halo Wars 3? They're like, oh, we're just not gonna worry about her in Halo Infinite.
Luke would be mad. Very mad. I just watched Halo Wars 2 for the first time a week and a half ago, and wouldn't the Halo ring at the end of Halo Wars 2 technically be Installation00C? Because it's a replacement for a replacement for Installation 04.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it would just be 4C.
Technically,
Yeah.
it's 09, but I prefer 4C. 04C sounds better than 09.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, like, Cortana has that ring, so is there going to be, like, a thing where we have a ring battle, where, like, they're fighting with the rings or something?
Just like fly into each other.
Yeah, exactly. Or, I don't know. That would look ridiculous, but, you know.
I mean, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like that was really just meant to show her gaining complete control of the galaxy. It was meant to show, like, how far her reach is across the galaxy, how much of a stronger hold she has over it now. I don't know. It would be kind of weird, I guess, if they brought in a second ring in Infinite. I wouldn't be against it. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't be against it. It would be very cool to be on a Halo ring and see another Halo ring in the sky. That would be really cool. That would make for a very cool sandbox, actually. But I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Anything else you guys want to add to that?
I'm
No.
good.
I'm good.
No, just upset that I don't know anything about this game yet.
Dude, tell me about
Makes
it.
two of
It
us.
sucks.
All right, last question. I'm gonna skip the next one because we already kind of discussed 6 a lot.
Mhm.
7. Is there any particular location from the Forerunner saga that you would either be extremely excited to see, disappointed, or otherwise?
I think we kind of covered this, like the Palace of Pain and where the Primordial was and places like that.
But I'm saying if they just did not have that, like if there's one particular thing
Oh,
from the Forerunner saga
right.
that they just didn't have, like somehow.
same answer.
It would be a crying shame if the Palace of Pain wasn't even referenced in it. You've got to. I think it would also be really cool to go to Installation 07's control room as well, because the control room for that ring, seeing as it was obviously one of the... the old array was senescent, right? I always get the two
Yeah.
mixed up.
Yeah,
And then
senescent.
it's-
Yeah,
yeah,
senescent. Sorry.
Senescent, yeah, whatever. So considering it was one of the senescent rings, it had like a really big control room. The part of the control room like sticks out from the ring. You can see it from orbit. It would be kind of cool to take some chronic elevator right to the top of that and be able to see like both the ring, the edge of the ring, and into space or something. That would be cool. And then another thing that I think would be kind of cool to go to as well, I don't think it will do, it's really minor, but you know that camp that Gamelpar and all the ancient human, all
Yeah.
the prehistoric humans
Yeah.
are in, it would be very cool to go to that and see like an essence of Gamelpar or something where he died. It would be
Yeah,
kind of cool.
that'd be cool. Yeah.
There's a rumor that Halo Infinite might take place on Reach for at least the first mission. I don't know if that's actually going to happen. I don't know if they'd be willing to design a whole level just for one small section of the game. But if they did, I would like to see that base that Blue Team raided in Shadows of Reach, or at least where all the survivors of Reach were, because in the book it talks about going all the under the glass and these channels and rivers and stuff that are no longer there. I think it'd be cool to see something like that in a game, because we haven't seen anything like that before. But the likelihood of that happening is very slim to none. But that's still something I think that would be a really cool way to pay off nostalgia and a story beat. So or a storyline. So I think that'd be really neat.
I could definitely see them doing like a flashback mission on Reach or something. Honestly, it would be really cool to do like a flashback mission to Reach where they go into Castle Base and get the assets. And again, spoilers for Shadows of Reach here, but actually show us what the assets were. I mean, we kind of knew, but actually show us in game what they were, because we still technically don't know what they were. Especially that thing in the lockbox from Sword Base. God knows what that is.
It's a Mendicant bias.
What
Just Mendicant bias.
What do you guys think? I know it's an off-topic question, but what do you guys think they are? Because when I finished reading the book, I was like, I figured they'd reveal that in Infinite, because I always looked at Shadows of Reach as like the Star Wars Rogue One of Halo. It's kind of like the Death Star plans, and then in Halo Infinite, it's just A New Hope. You know, you're going straight for it. You don't have that backstory yet unless you read Shadows of Reach. I don't know if that makes sense, but I don't know what you guys thought was in that those assets were, because I figured it was maybe another Cortana or a part of her, but
the three things from the vats were brain samples of a horse's brain. I'm pretty sure, because it said in Installation, you've done loads of videos about Horsey's journal. It was in a journal, wasn't it, where she had notes about the brain samples that she'd left on ice in the Castle Base.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah,
of her own brain.
Yeah, she made really unethically. She made 7 clones of herself.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that.
they were effectively they were designed to be literally just to grow the brain, so the body around it was like negligible, so to speak. But the whole purpose was to have effectively 7 viable living brains that she could then use to create an AI from. So hence Cortana being the only AI in existence that was created from living brain matter. But she used, I think, a few of them were unviable. She used one for Cortana. I think she used one for Kamala, which is basically Cortana's like older sister.
Yeah.
And then, effectively she had a few left over that she didn't get round to using. So yeah, it's pretty academic that the things that that Blue Team went to recover were the remaining brains, so to speak.
But then there's that thing in the lockbox from Sword Base that honestly I could not guess even remotely what that is, and they didn't even hint at anything either. Honestly, I reckon that's something that must be something that they've not actually that's not actually in the canon officially yet. I genuinely cannot think what they would have taken from Sword Base. There's nothing that I can think of from Reach, or I mean, Fall of Reach didn't even have Sword Base in it. That wasn't a thing till Reach. But like, there's nothing I can think of that we would know of that would be in that box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've skimmed through her journal over and over to try to figure out perhaps if there's something I've missed. I even looked up like the torn out pages to try to figure out maybe if there's something there, but no, I can't possibly even begin to guess what was in that box.
Interesting. Mendicant bias. He's
somehow he's there. Will has confirmed, because Will knows everything, that it is Mendicant bias.
Well, here's something I don't know, and I would like for them to finally explain, maybe in this game in a side mission or something, but that random ship that landed on Installation 04. Yeah, I want to know that. I have been thinking about that for 6 freaking years now.
What ship are we talking about?
It's the one that lands in Halo. Oh, it's technically CE, right?
Yeah, in Halo CE, the terminal shows a ship that crash lands on Installation 04.
Oh.
After they fired the array, but before Chief arrived, and like the atmosphere matched Installation 04 exactly, and this, that, and the other. But the design doesn't match Ancient Human or Covenant or Forerunner. So yeah, it's just an oddity. The meddlers.
Yeah, I can't take credit for that. That's all Chris Aiken of Halopedia. It's all he's doing.
It was the last remaining people from the Marathon trilogy crash landed in Halo.
It's
Anyway.
Mendicant bias.
Yeah, there you go. As Will would say, everything was Mendicant bias. If it doesn't have an explanation, Mendicant bias. Anyways,
Bias.
so if there's nothing else, then we can call it a day and go review Chris Raygun next.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yep.
As always, I'm Chris.
And I'm Will.
I'm Zang.
I'm Luke.
I'm 0-0.
And we will see you
On next CHRILLCAST. Bye, guys.